Welcome to Data-Driven Leaders, a podcast for business and technology leaders who are trying to shape and influence the future of data and analytics. In each episode, we feature conversations with data-driven leaders who are at the forefront of using data to solve complex business challenges. Let's jump in now and uncover some of the biggest challenges today's data-driven leaders face and find out what it really takes to build a data-driven culture.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Data-Driven Leaders. I'm your host, Christina O'Reilly, and this episode is brought to you by Gen Squared, a service provider dedicated to solving data and analytics challenges for today's enterprise. So today, we're going to talk about connecting people and data. Specifically, how connecting people and data can drive greater customer experience and build data-driven culture. Joining me today is Alicia Samuel, SVP of IT at Holt Renfrew. Hi, Alicia. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Christina. Thanks for having me.
So why don't you share with your audience a bit of your background about who you are and what your role is at Holt Renfrew?
Sure. So, Alicia Samuel, I'm SVP of Information Technology at Holt Renfrew. I've been there for the last several months. I'm getting my feet wet, understanding the team, coming in and working with our team in order to understand some of the emerging technologies that we wanted to take a look at, working on some of our technology debt, as we all have that debt in our organizations that we want to try and get rid of, and also focusing on customer experience and data, as well as cybersecurity. Throw that in
Just a
there.
couple of things.
Yeah, just a couple.
So let's get started. What are you seeing right now around the challenges with connecting people and data, not only on the business side, but on the customer experience side as well?
Well, I think our customers, especially after coming through the pandemic, are very, very savvy about how they shop, what they're looking for. They want organizations to know them and to personalize information to them so that it's not a lot of information that's coming to them that's not relevant. There needs to be a relevancy against that because there's a lot to sift through. Even myself as a customer, if I go and I take a look at something on a website, immediately I'm getting emails about, well, take a look at this offer, or there might be something else that you might be interested in from this company. So it gets to be a little creepy at times, but you want to make sure that when you're engaging with a customer, that it's really relevant, that it is showing that you know who they are and what they're interested in because you've got that information from multiple channels and sources, and you can really cultivate that relationship with the customer because we're honestly all retailers are competing in order to get a customer's attention. So having a really well done, well executed customer experience strategy based on data is going to be very important for organizations moving forward.
Right. There's definitely a lot of noise out there. So, on that note around, customer experience, we all know there's a lot that needs to go into becoming customer centric, right? It's making sure you have the right technology platform, it's establishing norms, collaboration, engagement. I read a really interesting stat the other day from Harvard Business Review where they conducted a survey with business leaders, and out of them, 88% said, yes, absolutely. Having that consistent view of the customer's platform and channels was really important. But out of that, only 15% said that they actually had that single view, that 360-degree view, and actually even said that they were challenged with organizational structures and technology to be able to make use of that insights.
Mhm.
What do you make of that?
I agree with that statement because traditionally we bring in tons of data. We've got tons of data coming in from multiple sources, but we use it for transactional reporting primarily. And a lot of organizations have these big data warehouses that house all of this information. It's used for reporting, it's used for some analytics. But in the past 10 years, let's say, where we're trying to get more connected and more personalized interactions with our customers, it requires having that 360 real-time view, which means that there needs to be data that wasn't there before that you may not necessarily keep in a data warehouse that's used for transactional reporting. So this whole notion of a customer data platform in the last couple of years has come out as a focus area to take a look at. How do you build out that 360 golden record of a customer that is real time? And what technology do you need to layer in to be able to get that done? And so I think a lot of organizations are, from a maturity level, are starting to take a look at what does it take to start building out what that platform is so that you can get the true value and really understand the orchestration, understand the decisions that it requires for interacting with customers. And so probably what's held a lot of organizations back, because with that technology requires investment and a business case. And if you don't have the right business case or understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish, it becomes difficult to get that through.
Right. How much does organizational silos and data silos play into this? And, what did you do? Like, have you come across that? So, the first question is, how often do you come across in your career those silos?
So there's your traditional data warehouse, which is pulling in X information, and then you have your shadow IT shops that are trying to pull information in different ways. And then you get the request usually that you want to be able to pull all these things together because the reports from one group is not looking the same as a report from another group. Well, because there's different silos of data in there. So what I think a lot of organizations are trying to do is they're trying to organize their data into one central view of product, of customer, of financials, so that of inventory, as we're looking at measurement for
Right.
as a retailer. So trying to organize that data and pull it into one centralized view that is secure, that has the infrastructure to be able to run the reporting for different groups is going to be critical. So there's that one piece. And then there's also that I had spoken about before, that whole customer data platform now, because for the new marketers that are out there that are looking for insights and to help build out that personalization, there needs to be a platform that can support that.
Do you find you're faced, or a lot of data leaders face, cultural change resistance, or that, potential pull and shift around looking at it, going from a decentralized approach to a centralized model?
Yeah, I think that it's a new way of working for a lot of marketing teams. It's really understanding what are the tools out there, what is the data, what am I trying to solve for, which could become confusing. I think that culturally, as we're coming in, especially with the millennials, they bring such great insights when they're coming onto the team saying, okay, well, we're not pulling any data from our Instagram. I'm not talking about Holt specifically here. I'm just saying in general. We need to pull data from our Instagram, Snapchat, from
Mm.
TikTok, from all of these different areas. We're pulling data, but okay, what are we going to do with this data? Well, we want to be able to interact in a different way and target these individuals in a different way. And so that's a whole new way of thinking
All right.
through to traditional data ways of thinking. And so it's a new culture and new mindsets and new ideas. So now we have to have the tools that can facilitate some of those pieces.
Yeah, today's culture really can drive, customer experience and growth. If you start thinking about the social tools out there and where we go, where the today's generation goes. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges as a result of, if you stay on the same vein of, these social tools that a lot of the next generation are using, how much does that impose in terms of challenges for you as a data leader?
The main challenge is that we collect a ton of data on our customers. Like the data is there. The new channels or multi-channel data that we're trying to pull in, we can pull it in. Then what do you do with it? So how do you make the decisions with that data? How do you get to execution of creating that new customer experience? What are the right algorithms and user stories that you need to build in order to do that without coming across as creepy or providing way too much interaction with the customer? You don't want to, if you're a multi-branded retailer, you don't want to engage with them with every single brand, that one customer, because then they're just going to throw up their hands and say, I'm not really interested. I'm going to unsubscribe. You want to keep them subscribed and interact and engaged. I think engaged becomes a critical word, right? And you want that right level of engagement. So the challenge is got tons of data. What do you do with these multiple channels? What do you do with all this data? How does it actually drive value for the customer?
Right.
And how do you lay out a strategy that's going to get you there? And that becomes quite a bit of thinking and strategizing as to if I'm going to invest in this, what am I investing in? What's my end game? Begin with the
Hmm.
end in mind, as the saying goes. What am I trying to achieve?
Right. It's all about the outcomes. Like, what's the
Yeah.
outcomes that the business is trying to achieve? You had talked about earlier about maturity, and so which prompted me to start thinking about of this whole AI and ML world that we're now completely versed in.
Mhm.
And so from your standpoint, either, in your career or even at Holt Renfrew right now, how much does AI and ML play in your world today?
I think that the ability to utilize AI and ML to provide automation, predictability, to run some of those key analytics. So you're instead of trying to analyze every piece of data that you've got in there manually, that automation and that ability to pull out the nuggets that you're looking for to kind of direct that thinking becomes really important. So I see a lot of value in driving that forward. The caution around this and what I've seen in my experience is that, again, it begins with what is the outcome that you're trying to achieve and have a really good, strong understanding of what do you need the algorithms to do for you in order to engage with the customer on their customer journey. And if I'm trying to sell something, do I want to sell something from the same category? No, I don't, right? And if you don't set up your algorithms correctly in this environment and try and engage in a way that if I have a customer that is coming in and always purchases with me, but I want to drive out an experience. Okay, that's a great way of engagement because now they're my best customers are coming back to us because they love the experiences that they're getting. Well, what do those experiences look like? And what's the data telling me that I should be driving forward as an experience rather than just throwing another offer for them to come in and get X% off an item, right? So it's really understanding the customer and using the technology to help understand what does that customer experience engagement look like.
So we've been talking about how connecting data and people really helps drive customer experience. How much does that process really tie into being able to drive a data-driven culture?
Yeah. So for taking a look at the data that we have and we collect it and we do transactional reporting on the data that we have, it becomes really important to understand again the outcomes, right? Like what are we going to achieve? How is it going to drive sales? At the end of the day, all retailers are looking, how do I drive sales? How do I engage and get the frequency of my customers coming back to us? How do I compete to win my customer? And so long as the strategy around being a data-driven organization are driving forward on those components, then you've got your business case for moving and driving this forward. But if there's no strategy against it, you can get caught up in this loop of trying to figure out, I've got a ton of data. Well, everybody has a ton of data. You could drive out insights manually, or you can drive out the right insights, faster time to market, engaging with the customer, driving frequency of transactions or frequency of foot traffic into the stores, and creating that overall value for the customer. So it's really about understanding that outcome
Right.
that becomes really important.
Right. And do you, in your experience, have you seen whenever an initiative starts within an organization, do they often start with that business outcome? And what I mean by initiative, when you're trying to deliver, a new technology platform or you're trying to modernize, do you find they're taking that business outcome approach?
Definitely, yes. So, well, I mean, from an IT perspective, we need to understand we could do different ways to slice an implementation for any technology project. But the quickest way or fastest time to be able to get to market with a project like that is really understanding what's driving the requirements. If we're going to help you meet your KPIs, we really need to understand what those requirements are. So in the business case, as we're looking at it, is it going to drive X% of growth? Is it going to drive X% of traffic? Is it going to drive customer loyalty or lifetime customer value for the customers that we bring in? Increased baskets on our e-com site, all of those different things, then we need to put that into the business case to help us drive the investment. So I think our organization does a good job of taking a look at what we need to do to drive the critical strategic KPIs with a customer lens. And then that drives back into, okay, now the technology part becomes, okay, how do we fulfill that business requirement for our business partners?
Right. On that note, you're starting to infer about what you're doing at Holt Renfrew. What does the future of data look like for Holt Renfrew without giving away any secret sauce?
It's definitely around that customer experience and engagement. We know that we want to connect with our customers. We want to be able to give them really great experience. It has to be seamless from brick and mortar to online. We want to be able to provide the right offering, the right assortment, and just overall the right experience. So that's top of mind. Every time that we do get together, we talk about, okay, from a customer perspective, what are they looking for? What's our feedback from our customers? What's the customer journey look like? So the customer is always put as the very first lens that we look at anything that we're doing. And again, in order to drive some of that, then we have to take a look at our insights. What are we seeing in sales? What are we seeing in, do they like this assortment or not? What are we seeing in feedback? What are we seeing on the social channels? And so all of that data becomes really important if you're going to be putting the customer first. So that's the focus that we're taking in our organization.
So it sounds like you really are applying that outcomes approach. So for our listeners, what advice would you have for them on how to lead a team that is focused on delivering outcomes?
Well, from a technology perspective, it is finding the right talent is going to be important. A lot of discussion on the fact that it's very difficult to find data scientists out there and folks that really understand that the new technologies or emerging technologies, how to take advantage of them. So if you've got them, hold on to them, build up your team. We utilize our vendors and our consulting partners to help us with understanding, the art of the possible, what's coming, so that if we have an ability to, we're a little bit, in our maturity ladder, a little bit laggard behind, but we have an ability to leapfrog, then, we'll look for opportunities to be able to take advantage of that. And our vendors and our consulting partners have been phenomenal in helping define what does that look like. So, really build and leverage your partners, because they do have insight to multiple organizations and what their levels of maturity are, where they are, and what is that art of the possible. So, team, culture, hold on to your team. If you got great staff, hold on to them. Really build up that ability to test and learn. So we had a lot of learnings in my past life on just running test and learns around data, around AI, around the benefits and whatnot. So I would say a lesson learned is always keep a bit to the side to be able to run test and learn engagements when it comes to data. You learn so much from it. So that becomes really important. There's a couple things.
That's great. And then, in your opinion, how much does a data culture mean to you personally and professionally?
I think that's the way of the future. I'm telling my kids to become data scientists. So
Same here.
get into IT and become a data scientist, please. So it's I think it's very important for our organization. Again, any organization that is focused on putting their customer first and understanding behavior in order to engage with that customer, to compete to win that customer, you have to drive forward on a really solid data strategy. And there's a lot of noise out there about what does that look like. There's a lot of MarTech out there about we could do this or we could do that or we could do, whatever it is. But really we want to get to, you've got a ton of data. I'm sure all organizations are in the same spot. We've got a ton of data we're collecting. We know. Now, what are you doing around your decision making and your execution or orchestration with the customer? And that becomes the important part.
Who should support you in that process? I mean, it can't just be IT, right?
No, and it isn't. Like I have a great partnership with our CMO. So that chief marketing officer role, your chief data role, your CEO understand it. Like they really understand that in order to win in this and to be competitive, you got to win on the customer. That support, the business requirements, the strategy and vision is a partnership. So from a partnership on the IT side to show here are all the technologies that can do some great things based on what it is that you see us doing with the customer and engaging with them. Working together in alignment on that becomes really important. And that's been successful in the past. So it's not one over the other, it's a partnership.
That's great. Well, I think we're coming up to our time. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today, and thank you for joining us. And I hope we get to see you again in the future.
Oh, Christina, I hope I could come back. This was great.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Data-Driven Leaders. This show is brought to you by Gen Squared, an organization dedicated to solving data and analytics challenges for the modern enterprise. If you enjoyed what you learned in this episode, make sure to follow Data-Driven Leaders wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or visit gensquare.com to get immediate access to all of the latest episodes.